Hi, my name is Thomas and I'm the photographer. In today's video, I will talk you through my process of editing a long exposure photography. This is not a tutorial, but an insight into my process. But I do hope you will learn something and maybe improve the process by taking it a step further in your photos. Feel free to share tips, tricks, or feedback in the comments below. And as always, like, share, and hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel. Now let's get into the photo. So at the beginning of the process, I'm in Lightroom and I'm selecting the best photos of the light trails. I like to shoot a lot of pictures when I do long exposure to kind of get different lights, different colors, and to make sure I get a good one. This is shot at something called Tjuvholmen here in Oslo. It's artificial island built with apartments, hotels, and museums, and it's a little bit of the rich and famous hangout, or where they live. But due to law in Norway, everyone has to have access to the sea, making it very popular for pretty much everyone. So here I am in the Photoshop, and I've selected the different layers I want the lights from. By using and then I use the auto align function in Photoshop to make sure they're all perfectly aligned. Then I use layer masks on individual layers to mask out the lights that I want to be visible. And this way I can combine different layers with different lights and make a combination that I'm happy with. The road is a bit narrow, so I've had to edit the lights a little bit, squish them together so it looks like two cars actually could pass each other. Otherwise you would not see part of the red light, since they would be hidden by the other lights. Here I'm cleaning up the mask a little bit after making like a rough mask around the areas I want. The checker pattern is invisible, and of course the pixels with the colors will be visible. I also use overlay modes in Photoshop to just make the lights visible on top of the other images. So the bright reds will show up as pixels on top of a darker background. That way it looks like the lights actually belong in that photo and doesn't look like two photos are pasted on top of each other. Little thing I learned on this photo that I didn't think of before is if the asphalt beneath is a bit bright, it will lessen the intensity of the lights you're trying to mask in. So I had to, in a later, I don't think I recorded it actually, but you can see a little bit there on the middle of the image, the red light kind of disappears in the bright parts of the asphalt. Later on, I added some dark asphalt underneath there to make the red light pop a little bit more. This white little random lights in the back there are actually people that were on these electric scooters driving around on the island. I put them in there. I thought they were a bit funny, but I might remove them in a later stage of this image to maybe clean it up a little bit and keep it a bit more pure and not so chaotic. Here I'm testing more different red lights. As I said, I took a lot of them and I just keep experimenting with layering them on top of each other, see if they kind of work together, if they emphasize each other, if they're destroying for each other. And do I want the very strong red light? Do I want like the fade out? Yeah, I just keep experimenting with that and testing what works. Some long exposure photography will burn out the details in windows. So to compensate for that, I would do a normal exposure to capture the window lights. And right now I put that layer on and I've started masking out the individual windows that I need some more details in. As you do that with a high-res photo like this, you kind of get a little bit of insight in what's inside the different offices and different buildings. There I made a tiny little mistake of painting black on the wrong layer instead of the mask layer. The brush is changed size and density depending on the job I'm doing, so working constantly with changing the size and how much softness I want from it and stuff like that. That's the red area you see sometimes in the brush where it changed the size. As mentioned, this is Tjuvholmen, kind of a rich and famous area. The window I'm painting right now is the museum, Astrup Fearnley Gallery Museum. Some very fascinating art in there. Recommend you go there for a look if you're in the neighborhood. But as I said, in Norway we have this called allemannsretten, which just means everyone should have equal access to the ocean and the nature. So nobody can like build a house by the seaside and says this is private property, you can't walk on my beach. All the beaches in Norway belong to all Norwegians. The flip side of that is people likes to party. So there's been a lot of complaints by people buying $1 million apartments here, having to listen to people partying all into the nights in the summer when the weather is nice and warm, because they have their balconies right outside the public areas. But I don't think they're getting very far, or there are security guards out there kind of you're supposed to be quiet after 10 o'clock, so they have a point in there. So they usually have like security guards walking around asking people to be quiet. I don't think they can ask people to leave unless they're very drunk or something like that, but just ask them to maybe be a little bit more quiet and respect people who might be trying to sleep. So that's all the windows masked in. So you see the details in the houses. I do a little bit of color adjustment to match the warmth of the yellow tones in the photo to match the windows. So there's a little bit back and forth there, changing the colors. And in the photo I had cropped off the top of this spear on the top of a tower. The tower is an elevator you can take up to the top to get a great view of Oslo. It's kind of cool. And as you pass through the apartments, the glass goes frosted, so you can't really see into people's homes. But yeah, I cut off the top and I just kind of painted in a new shape to kind of end it. But it turns out I didn't need to, because when I get back to Lightroom afterwards and do the straightening and the cropping, I kind of crop it even more. So there was really no point in doing this, but it shows with some basic painting skills you can make some photorealistic edits in the picture. And this is something you really shouldn't be afraid to just jump into. Just start painting with colors. You know, you're working on layers in Photoshop, so you're not really destroying anything. Just paint the shades and try and match the noise in the image if there's an ISO noise, and then it kind of blends pretty nicely in. So after I'm finished in Photoshop, I go back to Lightroom and I start by cropping and straightening the image, and that's where we see the top of that spear just poof vanishes, so no point in painting that. I like to start with this so I kind of know the framing I'm working on, and if I'm posting it to Instagram, I usually go for a 4x5 crop, since that maximizes the space on Instagram. But if it's for print or something else, maybe 4x3 or 16x9. I start by editing the curves. I like to lower the whites and raise the blacks to give a little bit of an analog feel to any digital photo, and then basically go for a little S-curve to add the contrast. Then it's a matter of individual tuning for each photo, like how much I pull and drag in the different sliders, you can see on the right side. I usually see that when I edit the curves, it adds too much color, so you always have to lower the saturation any time, or at least for me, when I do curves adjustments. Yeah, and then I change my colors, individual areas. Again, it's very individual how you like to edit your photos. So I experiment a lot, and that's where I really encourage people to do, is to just play around with the different settings and see what happens. If you want a dramatic effect, if you want a simple effect, but this is the process I enjoy a lot, shaping the photo and see what brings out, and when I change the different sliders and colors, and also to focus the eye on different details. Right here I'm kind of highlighting the white tower, bringing it out a little bit more so it's not just totally vanished in the distance there. It's an important part of this area. But mainly I want, of course, the eyes to follow the lights in the middle here. So here I mask them out and I try to punch them up a little bit to give them a little more intensity. I work with a lot of masks in Lightroom. Either I paint them with a brush tool, I make round masks, gradient mask. I use them a lot. And here are the two images side by side. The left one is straight out of Photoshop and the right one is after my edits in Lightroom. There's of course a picture before this of all the different elements I put together in Photoshop. So that's the finished photo. I hope you enjoyed this process. If you have any questions or remarks about the process or the photo, please put them in the comments below. And as always, please subscribe, share, and hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And check out my Instagram for this photo and more. And I will see you in the next video.